Today I wanted to talk to you about the soul not being always love and light. Lots of people insist that soul, when you're spiritual, when you finally make contact with the spirit and you live from the spirit, that all it is just love and light. That is to say, you're always happy, you're always, positive, and you're radiating love and light and that kind of stuff. I call it love and light. And when you're in that space of connecting to the spirit, and especially when you're right from that space, not only in your own as yourself, but as a voice of the soul. It's nothing. There couldn't be anything further from the truth that it's not love and light. The soul has its own way of communicating. And yes, there will be periods of ecstasy. I'll talk about that later. But when it speaks to you, when it finds a way of communicating with you, very often at the beginning of the start of this relationship, not the entire relationship with the soul, but at that moment of when you are finally centered and looking inward and start to flow, intuition is reactivated. The soul is not going to have anything love and light to say to you. It will be more than likely telling you off for not being in touch sooner, or will be telling you off about the way your relationship to it, the way it is right now. For instance, your survival instincts are still kicking around and dragging you into projections and so on. So love, there's no such thing as always love and light with the soul, and especially when you are already speaking as a voice of the soul, as a voice of the spirit. I am yet really to find anyone, Rumi talks a lot about this, love this and love that, but he also, when he is in that deepest trance, when the words come to him in that deepest trance and he writes his poetry, it's not love and light, it's soul is to the point, it's rather didactic, it's rather cold and harsh. I will read you a few things that I have posted on Facebook regarding this, and I've made a few posts, and obviously I've upset some people, especially the really spiritual people out there who profess always the love and light this and love and light that. And I would say that it's probably fair to say that some of these people, not all, some of these people have one of the deepest needs is to feel loved. Obviously, they haven't had that as in childhood and so on. So they will require for spirituality to be nothing but love and light. But also the same people professing love and light this and love and light that. But as soon as the TV gives them different instructions, as soon as the politicians or the church or someone else or the next door neighbor gives them different instructions, the same people profess something entirely different to a community of people they don't have any clue about. And they actually do profess, they will actually be very divisive, even hateful to a group of people, to a whole country of people. They have no knowledge, they haven't been, they haven't visited, they haven't had any contact with. So, spirituality, the people that are really spiritual, the ones that have not only just opened their heart, but they realize our oneness. Out of this oneness flows the true compassion. They realize that all people are just a unique embodiment of the single energy consciousness that supports the universe and enlivens all life. Whether we call it spirit, soul, God, goddess, divine feminine, Brahman, whatever you want to call it, Allah. So when someone has already made that connection that everything is one, that only the visions are in your own head, these people would never go ahead and start to repeat divisiveness that they have heard on TV or friends or newspapers. And so, having said this, what I wanted to read you out is a few things that I have posted some years ago. So when you are in this deep, deep state, and the voice, you are actually the voice of the soul. The soul speaks through you. It is hardly ever as love. Love this and love that. Love, hug the trees and hug this and... It is, but this love means, on this level, the love means compassion. That is to say, you recognize the other is not the other, but is just a unique embodiment of you, of everybody else. But when you are in that trance, and when you are speaking as a voice of the soul, very often the soul will be very critical of the behavior of people, the behavior of community, of society. And that's its main goal, is to shake you out of your own divisiveness, out of your own programming. Anyway, I'll read you what I have written some years ago. This is Kabir, that famous Indian mystic. And this is what he says in his writing, in his poetry, when he is the voice of the soul. This is what he says. Are you looking for me? I'm in the next seat. My shoulder is against yours. You will not find me in the stupas, not in the Indian shrine rooms, nor in the cathedrals, nor in masses, nor in curtains. Not in legs winding around your own neck, not in eating nothing but vegetables. When you really look for me, you will see me instantly. You will find me in the tiniest house of time. Kabir says, student, tell me, what is God? She is the breath inside the breath. You see? There's criticism running out throughout the whole poem. So, you cannot say that spirituality is all love and light. It's not. When the soul speaks to you, and I'll give you more examples in dreams in a minute, it isn't mainly to give you, to wrap you up in your own comfort, in your own need for comfort. So this is another one. This is Sufi mystic Rabia of Basra. This is what she says. How long will you keep pounding on an open door, begging for someone to open it? How long? And finally, in the words of the greatest giver of light and a giver of love and light, Rumi. This is Rumi. You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? You see? And this is how I conclude my little post. It says this is what I said. If you're looking for love and light, to feel better about your own unconsciousness, you won't find it in the words of a mystic poet. And this is true. You will find it in the poetry that is most popular, the one that always speaks about love this and love that, because that's what people, especially in Western society, we are all living alone, loners. We're fighting with each other for local resources. This is how we've been brought up. You have to compete with each other. That's the masculine mind, masculine society is like that. It's always competing, and women are not different. So this is when you are in that trance state and you're writing as a voice of the soul, the voice of the soul will not be nice and cuddly. It will be criticizing. It will be criticizing not only you, but the whole society. So that's not love and light. Now I'll give you examples from dreams. In dreams, I've worked with, my own dreams for decades and decades, and with other people's dreams for many years now. And it always is the same, that when you finally make the connection, when you finally are talking with the soul, exchanging information, flowing of information, you're looking at your dreams, you're paying attention, you're writing, you're being creative. Maybe you're painting, maybe you're working with mythological symbols, archetypes, and flowing that way. It will be eventually, when you make that contact, when you become, you can say when you become soaked in it so much that it becomes your whole life. Your one foot is firmly in the world of the spirit, in the inner dimension of the spirit, and the other is in this world of society. You will start to have voices. The inner voice will start to speak to you, and the real inner voice, and the deeper inner voice, when it starts to come from the level of the collective unconscious, of the universal soul, which your soul is a unique part of, like the spark is part of the flame, it will be very, very authoritative. So this is something I've experienced, a dream of mine many years ago. I have shared with you this dream before, and it was a dream of traveling to an island on a boat, and the boat is pulled by a rope by this androgynous figure who I thought it was Christ, Jesus as a Christ. The intuition is pulling me across the boat, across the ocean, to an island. And there on the island at the beach, there was a reception for me waiting, and there was the queen and the king, the whole court behind them. These were the archetypes, the center. I've reached the center of the center. This is the center of the from which the archetypes come, the building blocks that run our life every day. So here, the queen embraced me, the king embraced me. Behind them were the archetype of the witch, archetype of the hero, archetype of the knight, the wizard, and so on. And a great big voice said, "This is where we are all one, and there shouldn't be any further divisions." There was no, cuddly, or are you nice, how are you feeling, or poor thing, and there was none of that. It's a deep authoritative voice, and it says so. This is where you are, and there shouldn't be any more divisions. See? Another example. A dreamer's having difficulty finding a connection to their intuition and flowing, being creative again. So in that space between waking and sleeping, when you're still hearing the birds outside, let's say, but you're already experiencing what's happening in the dream. You're already hearing the voices, seeing the images in that space, right on the border between the two conscious and the unconscious. Yeah? A voice says, authoritative voice says, focus on your angel, meaning intuition, and get involved. It wasn't love and light, oh poor thing, it'll be better, don't worry, life is hard. None of that. It's straight to the point. This is what you need, and this is what the solution is. Okay? I can rattle off these examples to you for a long time. The point is, and I have had quite a few discussions with people about this. Yes, the society is missing the feminine divine, and the divine feminine means your inner life, the inner life of spirit, of mythology, of archetypes, the inner life, or dreams, visions, and intuition, getting your answers directly from your intuition. You see? That's divine feminine. And the feminine is divided perhaps into two parts. You can say the feeling and intuition. Feeling, now that's a bit more love and light. That's relating to another person. But that relating on the feeling level, what people insist is the open heart, is more one-to-one. That's what really we miss in our Western society. We do not communicate with each other very well. We compete with each other very well, but we don't. So when people become spiritual, one of the first things that they miss most, what they really need, is this feeling function of love. And then, so that everything that they post, everything that they write, everything that refers to their spirituality is love and light. But the really missing part is intuition. Now, on this level, when you start to become the voice of the soul, there is none of this cuddly, wrapping you up in wool and things like that. It is far more direct and far more confronting. People don't like being, confronted by the soul. A lot of people scares them, and it makes them feel like they failed. And it sort of brings you back to society where you get constantly told what to do and not what to do, the authority. But on that deeper level, that really, the real level of communicating with the soul. The soul, when it starts to speak through you, it's not going to be everything is told for you to do, so that you take it personally and you start to analyze yourself 24 hours a day. For instance, when I just read from Kabir or Rabia of Basra or Rumi, it's for the society. When you start to communicate and you become voice of the soul for your community, it is meant to be for your community, not just for yourself. So if you are, only wanting this love and light, then you're not being truthful to what the soul requires and is communicating through you to the larger community. Okay? And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about. It's a very difficult subject because it upsets a lot of people. It confronts them with the reality of the spirituality. I call this really bypassing, because there's fear of the real relationship with the soul because it's too authoritative. But I'll tell you this, once you have gone through this and accepted this level of the soul, the way it communicates, that it's not just about you, that it's not personal, that it's actually when you're being honest and you are able to communicate through you for the rest of the community, that it is not just about you, but it's about society, and then you can live with it. It's easier that way. Otherwise, you're going to get caught into thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing that right. And you might not be doing it right. But soul is certainly not about love and light, not all the time. There's ecstasy. Now that's something else. Ecstasy in dreams is when you have a transfer of energy from the spirit to you directly. Yeah? I'll give you an example. Years and years ago, when I was in my early 20s, just before I left for my quests to Scandinavia, I write about this in my book, Where We Dream the Single Dream. About a year before, I had a dream of a spirit figure sitting on the side of my bed, and I called it my lady soul. This was a woman dressed in white, long, flowing hair, and she's glowing. I woke up in the middle of the night. There would have been about maybe 3 o'clock. She's sitting on the right side of my bed. I am in bed. I wake up and I see her. She's glowing like full moon, white light. She's dressed in white, flowing gown. She has long sleeves, like that. on this gown, and one of the sleeves just gently, ever so gently, brushed against my hand. And at that moment was a transfer of energy. And I've never felt such ecstasy as I felt then. And what I mean by ecstasy is this feeling of release. Because at that moment I left the body. I left my body. I floated above the bed, and she started blowing into my ear. My body went stiff, and I felt vibrating. My body was vibrating, and I popped out. Poof, pow, out, and I'm floating above. Ecstasy is when you leave your body. That is to say, you leave the confines of the body, and it needs it's hunger for food, it's need for reproduction, sex and power, and all those basic instincts, hoarding, sex, power, the three basic instincts which relate to the first three chakra centers. Because what you're doing is you're releasing the Kundalini. The Kundalini is your energy. This is the life force. This is your inner self. If you incubate this inner self, force it back into your body, it will show in your dreams as growing, a divine child, a magical animal, an inner guide, an inner wizard, wise old man, wise old woman, someone that gives you instructions, knows more than you, and is more powerful than you. This is the image of the self, of your inner self. That's the image of the soul. Yeah? So that's ecstasy. The ecstasy is when you have transfer of energy, and the energy is so powerful that you pop out of your body. You don't want to return. I didn't want to return. I knew my life would be hard, because the real spiritual life is difficult. Because why? Because you become the voice of the missing soul in community, and people don't understand any of whatever you're trying to communicate. Do you know how difficult it is to communicate to people who have not had similar experiences or mystic experiences? You can't. How can you tell someone about snow when they have never seen or experienced snow? So that's ecstasy. That's different. That ecstasy is not the same as love and light. A lot of people confuse this because they've read books, someone told them that it felt so good and so on, but that they're not the same thing. Ecstasy is when you have transfer of energy and you are popping out of your body, you have an out-of-body experience. You have left the body and all its needs for survival and so on. But the real spirituality is when you connect to the spirit, when you connect to the soul, and it speaks through you. Like I just read in the poetry, or some people communicate through art, some people communicate like I'm doing now, just through videos and so on. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about, and that love and light is, in my view, it's bypassing, spiritual bypassing. Lots of people shout love and light, and they will actually point to their heart and insist that to be spiritual you have to have an open heart, which, by the way, many of them don't, like I said before, because it only on the feeling level it's only personal. That is to say, within the people that they have around them, or within the family, or within the country, and patriotism and all that, or politicians, whoever they say goes. So it's not wider. But the real love and light, the real compassion, comes from having experience of finally realizing the oneness of all things, that there are no others. You can't just divide us into good sheep and evil goats like we are doing right now in our society in the West. Okay, so that's it for today, and I'll see you next time, and thanks for listening. See you, bye.